Chapter 141, The Trap. Isn't this method a little too old-fashioned? Besides, Willow would totally hate me for life if I did this to make her mine. She would also terminate all contracts between my family and Southlake Corporation, Nicholas said rather awkwardly. At first, he thought that Alicia had a grand plan. This method had also crossed his mind before, but he felt that it was too risky and decided to drop it. Nicholas, think about it. We only have to achieve our goal. Reputation is everything for an attractive woman like my sister. You just have to wait for her to pass out and snap a few pictures and videos. Then, you get to use it as blackmail. She'd have no choice but to play by your rules. As for the contracts with Southlake Corporation, just use these pictures against her. You'd have her wrapped around your little finger, Alicia said with a smirk. Nicholas finally saw the full picture. This method might be risky, but it would undoubtedly be fruitful if they were to succeed. At the end of this plan, Willow would have been ravaged by him. On top of that, he got to use it against her indefinitely. Nicholas couldn't believe Alicia could be this evil. She wouldn't even spare her own cousin. Richard had been eavesdropping the entire time. After hearing everything, he wanted to join in on their plan. However, now that he was Alicia's husband, it meant that these matters no longer concerned him. Alicia, you truly are something. Even your cousin can't escape your vicious claws, Richard said as he gave her a thumbs up. Even if he couldn't make Willow his, to have her cooperate with the Hudson family was beneficial enough to him. Richard, what are you trying to say? Is that a compliment, or are you telling me off? Alicia fumed. Of course it's a compliment. This is a genius plan. Not only would it benefit Nicholas, but it would also help restore our family's partnerships with Southlake Corporation. Richard laughed. Alicia planned to help Nicholas so that she could destroy Willow and Caspian. Whenever she recalled how the two stole the spotlight at her wedding ceremony, she would become angry. Alicia knew what kind of person Willow was. As someone who valued her reputation, she would definitely keep it to herself if Nicholas took advantage of her. As long as Alicia kept Willow on a tight rein, she could subject Willow to her demands like a slave. It's set. Invite Willow over to Silverstone Hotel. It's owned by my family. Since it's on my home turf, everything will be a breeze, Nicholas said excitedly. He even wished that they could carry the plan out right away. You got it. As for spiking her drink, you'd have to do it yourself, Alicia said. By doing this, she could have an escape plan. Even if the plan was foolproof, she didn't want to risk her own life. That goes without saying. Let's just do it tonight. I can't wait anymore, Nicholas said as he rubbed his palms together in anticipation. In the director's office of Southlake Corporation, Willow was organizing documents. Her phone started ringing. She paused to look at the screen. It was her cousin, Alicia. Willow hesitated for a moment. They had never seen eye to eye with each other, and had never really contacted each other. Could it be that she needed Willow's help and was calling her now? After giving it a thought, Willow answered the call. Yes, Willow asked indifferently. Hey, Willow, I just wanted to give you a call, Alicia said in a sweet tone. This tone of hers gave Willow the goosebumps. Alicia had never been this affectionate with her before. If you don't have anything to say, I'm going to hang up. Willow didn't want to waste her time on Alicia. No, don't hang up yet. I feel like it's been quite a while since we've gone out for a meal. Do you have time tonight? My treat. Alicia jumped straight to the point when she thought that Willow was going to hang up the phone. Alicia wanted to take her out to dinner. This confused Willow even more. Why did Alicia want to buy her a meal all of a sudden? Willow felt that something was off as Alicia had never done this before. She decided to play along and not poke further. I have plans tonight. You'll have to eat on your own, Willow said nonchalantly. Willow, I know that I used to be stubborn and childish. I've also made you mad a couple of times. Now that I've become someone's wife, I've looked back on the past and realized how many silly things I've done. No matter what happens, I feel that our bond as cousins is the most important thing, Alicia said. Do you really think so? Willow asked. She felt touched after hearing what she had to say. It also made sense. Of course. But could you come by yourself without bringing Caspian? We're still a little awkward with each other. Today is our sisterly bonding time. Let's have a heart-to-heart talk, Alicia said. I understand. Just text me the location of the restaurant. I'll finish up here and head over as soon as I can, Willow said. Even though Alicia had always been at odds with her, they were still family. Considering how Alicia has taken the initiative to apologize, Willow felt that she should give her a chance. There were still many more years ahead of them. They couldn't possibly let this go on forever and live as each other's enemy. Willow received the text message instantly. She saw the address. It was the Silverstone Hotel. Willow called Caspian and told him she wouldn't be home for dinner. Caspian was still at Southlake Hospital. He was busy watching Avon's procedure and didn't think much about it. Willow headed toward Silverstone Hotel like a lamb to the slaughter. After parking her car, she headed straight for the had booked. Alicia, Richard, and Nicholas had been waiting for Willow for quite some time. The moment Willow walked into the room, she froze on the spot. Alicia had clearly said this was a meal between the two of them, so why did she bring her husband and Nicholas along? Alicia, didn't you say there'd only be the two of us tonight? Willow asked, displeased. Seeing Nicholas made her want to leave right away. It would have been understandable if she had only brought Richard along. Being in the same room as Nicholas was unbearable. This person had been bothering her for some time now. After Richard and I arrived, we bumped into Nicholas. This hotel belongs to his family. Alicia scrambled for an explanation. Now that the three of you are here as guests, it's only right that I be the one to treat you all to a meal. Let's just put the past behind us, Nicholas said. See, Nicholas has already offered to make peace. And he's right. Alicia hurried forward to grab Willow's arm. She was afraid that Willow might just leave. Willow had no choice. Now that she was already here, she could only give in to their request and stay for the meal. With so many people present, Nicholas wouldn't dare to try anything shady. Willow took a seat next to Alicia. Nicholas became visibly excited when he saw that their plan was slowly taking place. He rushed the waitstaff to start serving the food. He was eagerly anticipating their next agenda. Chapter 142. Just one last step. The waitstaff started serving the food. Each of them looked amazing. Everything had already been prepared because the three of them had arrived really early. Miss Stewart, we picked these dishes earlier on. Feel free to order more if there's anything else you'd like to eat, Nicholas said. There's no need to. Seeing Nicholas had made Willow lose her appetite. Miss Stewart, we have a lot of aged wine in our hotel. Feel free to order anything you'd like. It'll be on the house. Nicholas said this on purpose so that they could move on to the next step. What do you think you're doing, Nicholas? She must have driven here, so no alcohol for her. Soft drink would be fine. Alicia stood up immediately and pretended to rebuke Nicholas. This was all part of the plan. Alicia's words successfully dispelled Willow's worries. I'll have a soft drink, then, Willow said as she nodded. Even if she could drink alcohol today, she wouldn't. Without Caspian present, she couldn't let her guard down. But little did she know that Nicholas had already spiked her drink. The three of them had a glass of wine each. Let's make a toast. Here's to putting the past behind us. Alicia stood up and raised her glass. Willow politely stood up and touched the rim of her glass with everyone at the table. She only took a small sip as a symbolic gesture. Alicia and Richard exchanged glances when they saw Willow sip on her drink. Their plan was working. Willow was now their sacrificial offering. Here, taste some of the dishes, Nicholas said. He couldn't stop smiling. The thought of doing unthinkable things to Willow made him ecstatic. He had had this fantasy for the longest time, and it was finally coming true. It was at this moment that the door to the hotel opened. In walked a pretty lady with a perfect figure. This lady was none other than Willow's best friend, Zoe. Today was payday, and Zoe wanted to treat herself to a fancy meal. At first, she wanted to invite Willow to come with her. However, she decided against it. She was worried she would be interrupting her private time with Caspian. There was another reason. Zoe could no longer face Caspian. She realized that her heart would race whenever she saw him. She thought she must have fallen in love with him. Caspian was now Willow's husband. In order to stop her forbidden thoughts, Zoe rushed to move out of the villa. Standing outside of Southlake Hospital were Macy, Caspian, and Sylvia. "Caspian, which hotel should we go to for dinner?" An excited Macy asked. "Anything's fine. We'll just eat whatever we can find," said Caspian. No. When it comes to one's meals, it must be taken seriously. On top of that, it's a meal with our Lord Caspian. "I don't care. It has to be a fancy meal," Macy demanded in a spoiled manner. "It's not like I was the one who invited you," Caspian replied coldly. "I don't care. I must have a fancy meal today. If not, I'm going to tell everyone when we get back. I'll tell them that our mighty Lord Caspian is too broke to function and only thinks about himself," Macy proclaimed. She didn't mean what she said. She would never speak ill of Caspian. "You must have a death wish, huh? Fine, I'll bring you to a fancy meal at a fancy hotel. Satisfied?" Caspian replied in an annoyed manner. Sylvia, who was driving, couldn't help but chuckle at this scene. Macy was pretty stubborn. "Oh, yeah. Did you find out who was the mastermind behind Tony?" Caspian asked. "It was Belvin. Tony said it himself," Macy answered. Caspian nodded. His guess was Belvin, but he wanted to confirm. "What's your plan? Do you want me to kill him?" Macy asked. "Let's discuss this another time," Caspian replied nonchalantly. They arrived at a hotel called Rose Hotel. Sylvia parked the car at the hotel. Caspian waited for everyone to alight from the car before heading straight for the very important person room on the 3rd floor. "Macy, I'll have your wish fulfilled. Unleash the glutton in you," Caspian joked heartily. Macy obliged and had the entire table filled with various dishes. Meanwhile, something sinister was about to go down at Silverstone Hotel. After taking a few bites, Willow started to feel dizzy. Her whole body felt hot to the touch. She was puzzled. All she had was a few sips of non-alcoholic drink, and yet, she felt even more intoxicated. The three of them noticed Willow's flushed skin. The drug must have been working. Looking at her flushed face, Nicholas's mind started wandering. He even went as far as imagining all the nitty-gritty details of the scene he intended to act on. "I feel faint. I'll have to leave first." "The three of you may carry on," Willow said as she struggled to keep her head up. Something felt wrong. She couldn't even keep her eyes open. She tried to stand up as she spoke, but her legs felt weak. She scrambled to hold onto the table and chair. "Willow, would you be fine on your own? Why don't we just book you a room for a night's rest?" Alicia suggested cunningly. "She's right. The hotel belongs to my family anyway. Feel free to stay for the night," said Nicholas eagerly. He really couldn't wait a moment longer. If it weren't for Alicia and Richard being there, he would have already pounced on Willow right then and there in the private dining room. "I'll call Caspian to come and pick me up." Willow felt that things were going horribly wrong. She also started to suspect Alicia, and because of this, she would do anything not to stay at Silverstone Hotel. But right when Willow took out her phone, Alicia snatched it away. "Willow, you can't possibly bother Caspian over something so trivial. Besides, Nicholas is still here. If Caspian found out you had a meal with him, he'd be furious. You guys will start arguing over this, and I'd be the one to blame," Alicia blurted. "It's just a meal, and you can be my witness anyway." "Caspian wouldn't mind something like this," Willow said as her head spun. "How about I get you a cab to send you home?" Alicia lied. There was no way she would easily let Willow leave. Now that she was finally in a vulnerable state, it was their golden chance to carry out their plan. All they had to do was bring her to the room they had already set up earlier. Willow's head felt heavier by the second. She started losing her hearing, and Alicia's words became muffled. She managed to pick up on Alicia's offer to send her back. She gathered every strength in her body to nod. And with that, Willow staggered out of the room with Alicia's help. Nicholas and Richard exchanged smirks. They quickly followed Alicia out. Chapter 143: A Night to Kill Two Birds with One Stone. Even though Willow was light-headed, she was still conscious. She was led by Alicia into the elevator. Willow saw Alicia press the button for the 10th floor. Alicia, aren't we going home? Why are we going to the 10th floor? Willow started to panic in her intoxicated state. Alicia was stunned for a moment, but managed a quick reply. Willow, you can't even walk properly. Let's just stay here for the night. Alicia thought Willow had totally passed out. No, I have to get home, Willow insisted. Her gut feeling told her that something was terribly wrong. Her whole body went on high alert. Then, Nicholas and Richard joined the two ladies in the elevator. It's already late. It's not safe for you ladies to head back at this hour. Just stay for the night, said Nicholas right away. Now that there was one last step left, he would never let Willow slip out of his clutches. Then I'll go myself. Willow started flailing her arms as she scrambled to leave on her own. She couldn't stay here any longer. Nicholas blocked her and grabbed her wrist, stopping her from pressing the elevator button. What are you doing? Let me go, Willow demanded angrily. Willow, I'm being considerate of you. Look at the time. It's not safe for you to go back on your own, said Nicholas slyly. Please, let me out. Somebody help, let me out, Willow yelled hysterically. Nicholas had a sinister look on his face, and this rang the alarm bell in Willow's head. She feared for her life, and immediately shouted for help. Zoe happened to be having her dinner nearby when she heard the cry for help. It sounded very much like Willow's voice, so she ran over to the elevator quickly. Right at this moment, the elevator door opened. Zoe was shocked to find Willow inside, with Nicholas grabbing onto her. What the hell are you doing? Let go of her, Zoe yelled. She didn't expect to bump into Willow here. The trio were taken aback when they heard the yell that came out of nowhere. Zoe was someone they knew. When Willow saw Zoe, relief and happiness washed over her. Adrenaline kicked in, and she became wide awake almost instantaneously. Zoe, hurry, save me. At that moment, Zoe looked like her guardian angel. Let go of her. If you don't, I'll call the police, Zoe shouted angrily. Even though she didn't know what was going on, the scene unfolding in front of her was too suspicious. She knew that these jerks were definitely plotting something against Willow. However, once they realized it was Zoe, they totally ignored her. Just mind your own damn business, Zoe, Alicia shouted. Alicia, how could you work with outsiders to harm your own cousin? Are you even a human? Zoe was trying to pull Willow out of the elevator as she yelled at them. Enraged that Zoe was about to ruin his plan, Nicholas threw a kick at Zoe's lower abdomen. It was a kind of pain that Zoe had never felt before. She yelled out in agony. With such a heavy blow to her abdomen, Zoe fell to the floor and was writhing in pain. She didn't expect that Nicholas would kick her. Nicholas, you bastard. How dare you kick me? I'll not let this go. Zoe suppressed her pain and scrambled to get up. She raised both arms and ran toward Nicholas. Zoe was coming at him at full speed. Nicholas, who was caught off guard, couldn't defend himself in time and suffered multiple scratches to his face. His face was covered in blood. Hotel staff who were at the scene panicked and called for security. Run, Willow. Amidst the chaos, Zoe grabbed Willow's arm and made a run for it. Okay. Willow nodded and fought against her drowsiness. They were in a dire situation. They had to leave the danger zone first. Unfortunately, the drug had already taken effect. Willow no longer had the energy to run. Nicholas's face stung and burned. This crazy woman dared to attack his face. He was livid. He still needed his good looks to pick women up. Right at that moment, the hotel security guard had gathered in the area. Mr. Archer, what's the matter? The head of the security team asked anxiously upon seeing his bloodied face. Grab those two women, Nicholas yelled, as he pointed at Willow and Zoe. The security team immediately surrounded both of them. They were horrified. There was no way out. Mr. Archer, what should we do next? The head of security asked. Have the third floor emptied. Their dinners are on me. The ones I know in the private rooms, don't let them come out. Nobody's allowed to leave, Nicholas yelled. As of this moment, he was furious. He wanted to torture both Willow and Zoe. He planned to have these two women captured and brought to the room on the 10th floor. It was a 2-for-1 deal. just what he needed to release all the anger inside him. "Yes, sir," the head of security replied with no questions asked. He didn't dare to go against Nicholas's orders. The security team had the entire third floor evacuated in no time. Those in the private rooms were locked inside their respective rooms. They were all afraid that Nicholas would find trouble with them. Seeing this made Willow and Zoe fear for their lives. In the midst of the chaos, Zoe made a quick call to Caspian. There was no one else that could save them. At the Rose Hotel, Caspian was having a conversation with his comrades. "Caspian, I heard rumors about you when I was in South Aridlands. It said that you're a loser. Who fears your wife? Is that true?" Macy asked. She only had a few glasses to drink, but was already getting slightly drunk. In her tipsy state, she started spouting nonsense. "It's none of your business," Caspian said with a serious look. "Caspian, I've noticed that you're always gentle toward women. Even in the military," Macy said. "I'm warning you, I have my limits too. I won't forgive anybody who crossed the line, including you." Caspian's tone was stern. Macy wasn't wrong. Caspian was someone who could never lay a finger on the female soldiers. That was why Macy had always been so bold around Caspian. Caspian always hesitated to include women fighters on his team for this reason. Not only did they tease him, but they were also very chatty. Just then, he received a call. It was from Zoe. He was puzzled. Why did Zoe call him? "What's the matter?" Caspian asked. "Caspian, Willow and I are in danger. Please come over to Silverstone Hotel now," Zoe urged. "What's going on?" Caspian asked. There was no answer. At Silverstone Hotel, Nicholas could no longer wait to lay his hands on Willow. After the brief phone call, Zoe pocketed her phone. She was worried that someone might have seen her making the phone call. "Nicholas, what on earth are you even thinking?" Zoe asked as she stared at him. "Since there's nobody around, I'm just going to tell you. I've always wanted Willow, but she just had to fall for that for-nothing Caspian. I put a little something into her drink today, so now I will have my way with her," Nicholas said proudly. He didn't have to hide it anymore since the people surrounding them were all on Nicholas's. Hearing this shocked Willow to her core, and she broke out in a cold sweat. So that was why she started to burn up and feel dizzy after taking her drink. Chapter 144, A Critical Situation. At that moment, Willow realized that Alicia had a sinister reason for inviting her to a meal. It was to help Nicholas sleep with her. "You bastard! How could you be so shameless?" Zoe snapped. She never expected Nicholas to be such a deceitful man. "Yeah, whatever. I'd do anything as long as I can make Willow mine." Nicholas chuckled. "Touch her, and I'll kill you," Zoe shouted. "Hey, hold that bitch down for me. I'm going to teach her a lesson." Nicholas couldn't be bothered to listen to Zoe babble any longer. He was almost disfigured because of her. She had to be taught a lesson now. 2 security guards held Zoe down. She was no match for these bulky men. "Let her go," Willow yelled as she watched them restrain her friend. She wanted to help Zoe, but in her current state, she couldn't even move an inch. Nicholas raised his palm and slapped Zoe across the face multiple times. "Don't hit her," Willow cried out as she watched her friend getting beaten up. But Nicholas totally ignored her pleas, delivering blow after blow onto Zoe's face. Back at Rose Hotel, Caspian knew what was happening in Silverstone Hotel. He heard the sounds coming from the phone. He knew that Willow was in grave danger. He was extremely furious. Macy and Sylvia could also hear everything. They knew that something big was happening. "I'll have to leave first. It's urgent. Carry on without me," Caspian said as he stood up swiftly. Nicholas, that bastard. How dared he still pester his wife? Caspian wasn't going to let him off the hook this time. "Sylvia, remember to grab the bill later." "I'm going with Caspian to protect him," Macy said as she stood up. She came to South Lake City to get closer to Caspian and protect him. Now that he was going on a rescue mission, she had to go with him. Despite her usual indifference, she would instantly spring into action whenever something like this occurred. Sylvia had lost her appetite as well. She knew that something must have gone down at Silverstone Hotel. Macy followed Caspian to his car and took the driver's seat. They sped off, heading towards Silverstone Hotel. On the way there, they ran all the red lights. The tension at Silverstone Hotel was only getting higher. Guess what, Nicholas? I secretly called Caspian just now. If you're smart, you'd better let us go now. If not, you'd have to face Caspian's wrath, Zoe said mockingly. Zoe revealed this in hopes of scaring Nicholas. However, her voice was a little too soft. She wasn't sure whether Nicholas had heard her. Caspian, that useless piece of shit, let him come. This is my territory. If he dares to come over, I'll beat his ass too. The mere mention of his name filled Nicholas with rage. If it weren't for Caspian, Willow would have been his. With nothing left to say, Nicholas started beating Zoe again. When Willow saw how cruelly Zoe was tortured, she could no longer bear to watch it. She could only plead, please stop. Don't hit her anymore. She'll die at this rate. The guests inside the private rooms could hear everything. They wanted to see what was happening outside but were blocked by the guards. Security, bring me a knife. Nicholas ordered. When Zoe heard that he wanted a knife, she became terrified. What was he planning to do? Did he want to pay her back for scratching his face? Zoe was thrown into a panic. She didn't want to be disfigured. Her face was the most important thing to her. You dared to disrespect me, huh? I'll fuck up your face today. Nicholas spat. Please, don't. You might as well just kill me, Zoe said as she shook her head hysterically. She would lose all her will to live if she didn't have her pretty face anymore. Nicholas was even more delighted to see Zoe so frightened. Nicholas, just wait till Caspian arrives. He will definitely destroy you, Willow yelled furiously. She was well aware of Caspian's powers. He didn't even budge when facing flying dragons and its tens of thousands of members before. It would be his death sentence if he were to lay a finger on her. Oh, really? I look forward to Caspian's arrival. Then, it's been quite a while now, and he still hasn't shown up. Maybe he's afraid to even come here. Nicholas jeered. Seeing Nicholas's boastful attitude made Willow extremely angry. She didn't know when Caspian would arrive. Alicia, give me back my phone, Willow said to Alicia, who was standing next to her. You're barely even conscious. Willow, why would you need your phone? I'll hold it for you in case you lose it. Shut up. From today onwards, we're no longer related. Stop pretending to be close to me. Let me call Caspian, Willow exclaimed. Willow was more awake now. Watching Zoe getting pummeled shocked her to her core. Although she didn't have any strength in her, her mind was clear as day. She finally saw Alicia's true colors. A person never changed. All this while, Alicia had never wanted to reconcile with her. Fine by me. From now on, you're no longer my cousin. Growing up, everybody only had their attention on you. Even on my wedding day, you just couldn't let me have that one day for myself. I'll just be honest with you. Drugging you is actually my idea. I want to ruin your life so badly that you lose everything, and I want you to bow down to me. Alicia exploded. All these years, every rage and dissatisfaction she had bottled up inside had festered. Today, she had to let Nicholas ravage Willow. Only then would Willow stop being so full of herself. Her goal would finally be achieved. Willow was livid. If Nicholas really did assault her, she wouldn't be able to tell anyone. Caspian kept the phone call going the entire time. Hearing Willow's conversation with them made it clear that the situation at the hotel was dire. He was fuming mad. He urged Macy to drive faster. It only took Macy 6 to 7 minutes to arrive at the Silverstone Hotel. Caspian immediately opened the car door and rushed out. Macy followed closely behind. On the third floor of the hotel, the head of the security team found a knife and handed it over to Nicholas. Mr. Archer, we've brought the item you need, said the team leader. Zoe, where should I begin? Nicholas gave Zoe a smug smile as he held the knife in his hand. Chapter 145, The Ultimate Betrayal. Nicholas, you asshole. I'll never forgive you if you dare lay a finger on me. Zoe was hysterical. She never expected Nicholas to be so vicious. When Willow saw that Nicholas was about to use his knife on Zoe, she yelled, Nicholas, you better stop. If Caspian sees you hurting us, he'll not spare you. Willow, Stop using your useless husband to threaten me. What is he even capable of? Besides, this is my turf. Nobody would dare to do anything to me. Just be patient. It'll be your turn soon. Nicholas leered at Willow. Scumbag. I'd rather die than let you have your way. Willow was feeling even worse than before. She wished Caspian would show up and rescue them. Oh, really? We'll see if you're still this vocal after I have fun with you later. Nicholas laughed. Richard and Alicia never thought that Nicholas would expose their entire plan. They were momentarily speechless. This might be his territory, but he was being a little too wild. There were still many employees around them. What if this had gotten out? You shameless lowlife, Willow bellowed. She never expected that Nicholas would commit such a vile act on her. Can't say for sure that you won't stoop lower than me when the drug takes full effect. Nicholas guffawed. Nicholas, just get down to it, reminded Richard. Nicholas sure was a chatterbox. If he were to drag on any longer, and with the arrival of Caspian, there would surely be some changes to their plan. Okay, I'll do it now. Nicholas agreed. He held the knife to Zoe's face. During this time, Caspian and Macy had arrived at the first floor of the hotel. There were security personnel guarding the entrance to the elevator and stairs on the first floor. They were prohibiting other guests from going up. Caspian and Macy forced their way through without hesitation. What are you doing? You're not allowed to pass through. The guard shouted when he saw Caspian and Macy making their way through. They completely ignored him. When the guard insisted, Macy threw a punch at him. He fell to the ground before he could even fight back. Caspian and Macy finally arrived at the third floor. As soon as they stepped out of the elevator, Caspian saw that Willow and Zoe were being cumbered. He could see Nicholas holding a knife. He was about to hurt Zoe. Stop what you're doing, Caspian roared. His loud voice took everyone by surprise. Nicholas also dropped his knife. Everybody turned their heads toward the source of the voice. There stood a man with a great physique, and he looked really angry. Standing behind him was a beautiful lady with fair skin. There was a dark air to her. Caspian's appearance made the three perpetrators stagger. On the other hand, Willow and Zoe were glad to see Caspian. Caspian! Both Willow and Zoe shouted excitedly. The semi-conscious Willow was jolted out of her drowsy state when she saw Caspian. Zoe had initially lost all hope, but Caspian's arrival restored her hope. She was elated. Caspian had his piercing gaze fixed on Nicholas as he slowly approached him. Nicholas couldn't help but tremble before Caspian's icy cold glare. When he finally snapped out of his trance, he shouted, "Stop him!" "Yes, sir," Nicholas's men shouted as they swarmed in on Caspian. Caspian couldn't even be bothered to fight them. He leaped and skipped the entire crowd of guards, and with that, he landed directly next to Willow and Zoe. He prioritized protecting them first. As for the guards, he could just leave it to Macy. Alicia was startled to see Caspian landing in front of her. She immediately let go of Willow and hid behind Richard. Both Nicholas and Richard were equally startled. Macy didn't even bother to deal with the guards. She jumped and kicked a table. It flew and smashed the guards. The guards didn't even have time to react as they froze on the spot while watching everything go down. They wailed in agony and became dizzy after getting hit by the table. Willow and Zoe were stunned as they watched the guards cry out in pain. Everything happened too fast. They didn't expect this subordinate of Caspian to be so powerful. She was as strong as Sylvia. Since Macy was a beautiful lady, Willow couldn't help but wonder if there was anything going on between her and Caspian. Everybody on the spot was also shocked that there was such a powerful woman with Caspian. "Caspian, what's next?" Macy asked, waiting for his instruction. She didn't dare to act on her own without Caspian's command. "Do whatever you want. Just make sure not to kill them," said Caspian nonchalantly. The guards were only doing their job according to Nicholas's orders. Even though they weren't nice, they didn't deserve to die. The real culprits were Nicholas, Alicia, and Richard. "Got it," Macy responded. More guards started swarming the place. "Hurry! Stop her!" Nicholas shouted anxiously. The head of security rushed forward. He was in a gang before and knew how to fight. However, after seeing how strong Macy was, he became intimidated. But he dared not disobey Nicholas's order, and had to bite the bullet. He charged toward Macy. She used only half of her powers as she didn't want to kill anyone. But her kick still sent the head of security flying. He fell to the ground and passed out right after he threw up blood. The rest of the security team was astounded. To them, their leader was someone they looked up to. They couldn't believe that he would be defeated so easily by a woman. The trio finally realized that the situation wasn't in their favor when they saw how useless the security team was. At the same time, they were curious about the relationship between Caspian and this gorgeous stranger. "Macy, protect Willow," Caspian said as he carried Willow to her. Then, with his entire being filled with rage, he flew toward Nicholas. "What do you want?" Nicholas cowered away as he watched a fuming Caspian coming toward him. "Nicholas, you shall pay for having evil intentions toward my wife," Caspian said sternly. He planned to teach Nicholas a lesson first before dealing with the other two. I was wrong. Please, spare me. I'll never bother Willow again." With all the guards knocked out, Nicholas was afraid to go against Caspian any further. "Spare you? Do you think that's possible? You're a fucking pervert who touched my wife. I must teach you a lesson today," Caspian stated. Nicholas wasn't going to just sit around and accept his fate. He pulled Alicia toward him and held the knife to her neck. "If you take one step closer, I'll kill her," he yelled. Chapter 146. I can't hold on any longer. Everyone was stunned by Nicholas's sudden act of aggression. Alicia was dumbfounded. She never expected that Nicholas would lay his hands on her. To think that she had everything planned meticulously for him, only to have him stab her in the back like this. Caspian was taken by surprise as well. But that was a stupid move. "Caspian, don't come any closer. Don't forget that I'm also your cousin-in-law. You think I care about your life?" Caspian chuckled. She deserved to be cut into a million pieces for plotting something so evil against her cousin. Before Caspian even finished his sentence, he threw a hard punch at Nicholas. Nicholas yelped as the blow sent him flying. He threw up blood when his body crashed into a wall. The guards were astounded as they watched Nicholas get beaten. How could they help him when they couldn't even afford to protect themselves? Caspian only used less than a quarter of his strength for this punch. Now that he had dealt with Nicholas, he turned his attention to Richard and Alicia. The two of them trembled and stepped backward. They knew that it was time to face the music. "Willow, hurry and stop him. He wants to hurt me." Alicia ran toward Willow and grabbed her arm, begging her. "Who was the one who wanted to sever ties with me? You teamed up with someone to harm me. You think I'll help you beg for mercy?" Willow was deeply disappointed by Alicia's betrayal. At that moment, Alicia's life or death meant nothing to her. Alicia got so scared that she knelt down and clutched onto Willow. She pleaded, "Willow, I know now that what I did was wrong. I won't do it anymore. Please, I beg you. Please stop Caspian." Upon seeing her kneeling down and begging for her life, Willow's heart softened. Willow had even forgotten about Alicia's mistreatment toward her. Then, she begged Caspian. Caspian was speechless. Willow was too kind. Alicia had banded together with Nicholas to harm her, and yet here she was, begging on her behalf. "Fine. For your sake, I'll spare her," Caspian said. Alicia was overjoyed to learn that Caspian would be sparing her life. She never expected that Willow would plead on her behalf. Alicia was afraid that Caspian might take back his words, so she made a run for it. Richard saw this and followed her. There was only one thing on their minds, which was to escape. Nicholas's life and death no longer mattered to them. Caspian hinted at Macy with his eyes. She got the hint right away. She kicked the guard's stun baton and sent it flying toward Alicia and Richard. Why would Caspian go easy on them when they wanted to hurt Willow? They fell down when the baton hit them on the leg. "Caspian, didn't you say you'd let her go?" Willow asked. "It wasn't me, was it?" Caspian waved his arms. Willow couldn't refute it. It was Macy who did it, not Caspian. The two of them lay on the ground with their heads spinning. They no longer dared to move an inch. Caspian picked up the knife and walked toward Nicholas. This lecherous scum kept harassing Willow. There was no way he would let him off the hook. "What do you want?" Nicholas cried out in fear as he watched Caspian approaching him. He was already beaten to a pulp, but it seemed like Caspian wasn't done yet. "I want you to remember well, and only pain can make that happen," Caspian said calmly. A sleazeball like Nicholas needed to be taught a lesson, or he would go around hurting others again in the future. The lowlife pleaded for his life, saying, "Please, I beg you, spare me. I won't ever do it again. You better not touch me. I'll report you to the Inspector General's office and have you arrested," Nicholas blurted out as his last resort. "That'd be perfect. I'm very close with Chief Sanders, who happened to be their new chief. Feel free to ask her how long you'll be spending your shitty life in jail for drugging Willow," Caspian said nonchalantly. Nicholas froze. He had forgotten that Caspian and Joey were well associated. Even if the Inspector General was involved, the one facing the punishments would be Nicholas himself. In the end, Nicholas realized that this wouldn't work. He resorted to his final option and begged Willow to plead for him. "Miss Stewart, for all these years that I've poured my heart on you, can't you beg Caspian for my sake?" he pleaded. "You despicable jerk. You drugged me. I'll never forgive you," Willow said furiously. Even now, she was still feeling uncomfortable. A bastard like him was fully deserving of death. Seeing how resolute Willow was, Nicholas knew that there was no hope left. Caspian could no longer be bothered to waste any more time on him. He picked up the knife and headed for Nicholas. With flashing speed, new bloody scars appeared on Nicholas's face. He shrieked in pain. It sounded like a slaughterhouse. His entire face dripped with blood. He looked absolutely terrifying. Looking at Nicholas succumbing to his miserable fate, the guards felt satisfied. Had it not been for him, they wouldn't have to suffer like this. Alicia and Richard were scared out of their wits. They became really worried that it would be their turn next. Seeing Nicholas getting his face slashed gave Zoe the ultimate satisfaction. While all of that was going down, Willow felt her body burning up. She could no longer keep her eyes open. Nicholas was in extreme pain. He saw his reflection in the glass. What he saw terrified him. This was the end for him. With his face ruined, no woman would ever want him again. Nicholas felt aggrieved, but there was nothing he could do about it. At that very moment, he had some regrets. He started to resent Alicia. If she hadn't suggested such a crappy idea, he wouldn't have ended up in this state. Sylvia had finally caught up with them. Seeing Caspian and the others unharmed, she felt relieved. The situation was just as she had expected. Caspian then approached Alicia and her husband. He was ready to punish them. Nicholas also hoped that Caspian would punish the two of them severely. They were the real masterminds behind the plan. It would feel so unfair if he didn't get to witness the two of them getting punished. "Caspian, I feel unwell. Please send me home," Willow said in a soft voice. "What's wrong?" Caspian asked with concern when he reached Willow's side. "The drug's becoming stronger. Please get me away from this place," Willow panted. Her cheeks were flushed. "Okay, we'll leave now." Caspian could see that Willow was severely unwell. He needed to send her back quickly. If they were to wait any longer, Willow would succumb to the effects of the drug. It would be a humiliating sight. Chapter 147. Last night was intense. Nothing mattered more to Caspian than Willow's safety. He would have to find another time to deal with that wretched couple. Zoe also needed to be sent to the hospital as she had been badly injured. Caspian knew to set his priorities straight. He said to Macy, "Take Zoe to South Lake Hospital. Get Avon to treat her. I'm on it," she answered. "Sylvia, please go with Macy," Caspian said. "Got it," she said. Caspian carried Willow in his arms and left the hotel immediately. Alicia and Richard let out a sigh of relief when they saw Caspian leave. Nicholas, on the other hand, was very upset. How could he leave without punishing the couple? How could he be the only one punished? Nicholas never thought that things would end this way. Caspian brought Willow back to the villa. When they arrived at the villa, Willow was already in a state of delirium. She was semi-conscious and started speaking whatever came to her mind. Willow had her arms wrapped around his neck and began speaking to him flirtatiously. Caspian blushed. This drug was really something. It pained him to see her suffer like this. He decided to spend the night with her. Willow had always been shy. Now that she was being so upfront, it was a whole new experience for Caspian. Back at Silverstone Hotel, Alicia and Richard approached Nicholas after Caspian had left. "Nicholas, are you okay?" Alicia mocked. At South Lake City, the Archer family was more influential than the Stewart family. This plan was Alicia's idea, and yet Nicholas was the one who bore the brunt of it all. Since Alicia was the one who caused this mess, she was worried that Nicholas would seek revenge against her. "What do you think? My face has become like this. How am I supposed to continue living? I'm better off dead," Nicholas fumed. His face was completely wrecked. "Nicholas, with your family's background, nobody would mind your looks. Even if you've turned into Frankenstein, there would still be a line of women who'd want to marry you." Alicia took a jibe at him. "Shut your trap, you fucking bitch. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have to suffer like this," Nicholas shouted. "What are you even saying? How is it my fault? This plan was perfect from the get-go. You were the one who kept dragging on and blabbering away until Caspian showed up. You're the only one to blame for wasting the time." Alicia didn't want to be held responsible for this incident. "Shut the fuck up. How would I know that he'd show up?" Nicholas lamented. "I had it all planned out for you, but the situation took a drastic turn. It's all Caspian's fault. If you want revenge, he's the one you should look for," Alicia said. Nicholas agreed with what Alicia said. All of these happened because of Caspian. He was then rushed to the hospital, accompanied by Alicia and Richard. As for the security team, Nicholas had totally disregarded them. At the South Lake Hospital, Avon gave Zoe some medication. The scars on her face healed almost instantly. "Doctor, you must be a wizard. How can this medicine be so effective?" Zoe thanked the doctor. "You're too kind, Ms. Yanez. Caspian is my friend." "I'm only fulfilling my duty," Avon said. "I see. That's why he had me sent all the way here," Zoe said. After the treatment, Macy and Zoe left the hospital. "What's your relationship with Caspian?" Zoe asked Macy on their way back. Zoe had to ask about the relationship between her and Caspian. Macy was an attractive lady. She wanted to know why they showed up together. "We're comrades," Macy answered. "You're his comrade." Zoe was surprised. Now that she thought of it, Macy was really good at fighting. Zoe proceeded to ask more questions, but Macy couldn't be bothered to entertain her. She went back to the hotel right after sending Zoe back. Nicholas had also arrived at South Lake Hospital for treatment. His parents rushed to the hospital as soon as they got the news. When they saw Nicholas's face, they were horrified. "Who was it? Who did this to my son?" They cried out. "Mother, it was Caspian. That bastard. My face is ruined. My life is meaningless now," Nicholas cried. "It's not like you have any conflict with him. Why would he hurt you?" asked his father, Vince Archer. He was infuriated. Nicholas explained everything to him. He knew that he could no longer keep the matter a secret. "Bastard. Who does he think he is? How dare he attack you? He must think we're weak." "Nicholas, don't worry. I will definitely seek vengeance for you," Vince exclaimed. "Dear, please don't be rash. I've heard that Caspian's background isn't that simple. I think we should ask around before taking any action," Nicholas's mother said. "Fine. I will ask around about him and make my move," Vince said. The next morning, Willow's head felt heavy when she woke up. She couldn't recall what had happened the day before. All she could remember was that Caspian had brought her home. The events of last night were all hazy to her. Could it be that Caspian and her had... When she recalled what went down, her cheeks were immediately flushed. She couldn't bring herself to imagine how she acted the night before. She must have been under the influence of the drug to have done it with Caspian. When she went downstairs, she saw Caspian sitting on the sofa. "You're awake. How do you feel?" Caspian asked, smiling. "I'm feeling much better. Did we?" Willow asked, feeling embarrassed. "Yup. And it was intense." Caspian laughed. The Willow from last night was a completely different person than before. "Ah. Stop talking about it. I feel so embarrassed." Willow was blushing hard. She avoided eye contact with Caspian. Even though they were a married couple, whatever happened between them last night was practically under Caspian's control, as she wasn't lucid then. "Oh, right. I've something to ask you." Willow tried to change the topic. "What is it?" Caspian asked. "What's your relationship with the lady from yesterday?" Willow asked. Although she might not be able to recall anything else, that lady who was with Caspian left a lasting impression on her. "You mean Macy? She's my comrade." "You don't have to worry about it," Caspian explained. "I really hope it's that simple." Willow couldn't get Macy out of her head. Willow had never felt insecure about her looks before. But after seeing Macy, she was starting to feel unsure. Macy had an exquisite figure. It seemed like Macy and Caspian were really close with each other as well. Chapter 148, A New Impression. Are you jealous? There's really nothing going on between us. Besides, I have a drop-dead gorgeous wife. Why would I be attracted to someone else? Caspian chuckled. He never thought that Willow would get jealous over this matter. This made Caspian happy because it meant that she cared a lot about him. "Who said I'm jealous?" Willow folded her arms across her chest and said smugly. She would never admit it. "Caspian, did you really disfigure Nicholas's face last night?" Willow asked as she suddenly recalled the incident from the night before. She could vaguely remember seeing Caspian slashing Nicholas's face. "That's right." Caspian nodded. "That was a pretty reckless move. The Archer family is really influential. Now that you've ruined his face, his family would never let it rest," Willow said. "He had plotted something so evil against you. Not killing him was already too gracious of me," Caspian said in a fierce tone. These words made Willow happy. She had also realized that Caspian was no longer the same person he used to be. He was now full of confidence. He had also become more firm in handling things. However, she just couldn't see through him. It felt like he was full of secrets. "How's Zoe doing?" Willow asked in a concerned tone. She had no clue about what had occurred in the end. "She's fine. We had her sent to the hospital," Caspian said. Willow nodded. She was relieved to know that Zoe was fine. If Zoe hadn't appeared in time, she would have already been harmed. Thinking about it now, she still harbored some resentment toward Alicia. After all, Willow was her cousin. How could she team up with someone to deceive her? Just thinking about it made Willow infuriated. Caspian went into the kitchen to prepare breakfast. Willow called Zoe out of concern. "Willow, what's the matter?" Zoe asked in a raspy voice. She had just woken up. "Nothing. I just wanted to ask how you're doing," Willow asked, her face full of concern. "I'm all healed. A comrade of Caspian treated me yesterday. The swelling on my face is gone too," Zoe said. Hearing the word comrade got Willow's attention. There was another one. Could it be that this comrade was Macy? For such a beautiful lady to also be medically skilled, no man would be able to resist her. Upon hearing Zoe's words, Willow started to feel conflicted again. It felt like she didn't really know Caspian. Not only was he acquainted with someone like John Anderson, but he was also surrounded by wealthy friends. And then, out of nowhere, a random attractive lady showed up as his comrade. On top of that, he had a friend who happened to be an amazing doctor. Everyone in his circle turned out to be greater than the last. "I'm glad that you're fine. I'm grateful for your help last night. If it wasn't for you, I don't even know what would have happened to me," Willow said, still a little shaken from the incident. "We're close friends. There's no need to be so formal between us. If it hadn't been for Caspian and Macy's timely arrival, I wouldn't have been able to do anything," Zoe said. "Oh, right. Did you and Caspian?" Zoe asked as she suddenly seemed to recall something. "Oh, my God, don't even ask. It was so embarrassing," Willow said, blushing. "I want a man too," Zoe cried out. She then added, "Willow, you must keep a tight leash on Caspian. He has so many beautiful women around him. I'm pretty sure at least one of them likes him. Especially Sylvia. She's always by his side. You have to be careful. If some other woman snatched him away, it'd be too late to cry over spilled milk." Zoe couldn't confess to Willow that she actually had a crush on Caspian. What Zoe said made sense. Caspian was now an outstanding man. After breakfast, Willow went to work. Not long after, Caspian drove to South Lake Corporation as well. He had Miranda come to his office. "Miss Barton, how much of South Lake Corporation's operation has Willow familiarized herself with?" Caspian asked. "Mrs. Lynch is a natural. She had fully accustomed herself to the operations of our corporation," Miranda replied. She wasn't exaggerating. During this period of time, Willow had fully adapted to the workings of South Lake Corporation. "Since that's the case, it's time to assign everything to her. I'd like you to draft a contract and have her sign it. From now on, she'll be the president of South Lake Corporation." Caspian had zero interest in managing the company's matters. He couldn't wait to have Willow become the president of the company. "Yes, Mr. Lynch?" Miranda replied. "As for the justification, just come up with anything," Caspian instructed. An hour later, Miranda brought over 2 copies of the contract. She entered Willow's office. "Congratulations, Ms. Stewart," Miranda said, as she entered with a bright smile. "What's the occasion?" Willow asked, confused. "I just got the news. The president plans to migrate overseas. He'll no longer be involved in the management of South Lake Corporation. It's been decided that you'll become the next president of South Lake Corporation." Miranda has already thought up an explanation beforehand. "Ms. Barton, you must be joking with me. Isn't there a seniority ranking within the organization? There's no way I would be the next one in line." Willow refused to believe what she was hearing. "It's not a joke. I have the contract with me. Take a look at it," Miranda said as she handed it to Willow. She examined the contract carefully. After she had finished going through it, she was surprised. It was as Miranda had said. Once she signed the contract, she would be the new president of South Lake Corporation. On top of that, she would be entitled to 49% of the company's shares. It felt like a dream. Willow couldn't believe it. South Lake Corporation was a huge corporation. The thought of owning nearly half of South Lake Corporation's shares was pretty daunting for Willow. "You may sign the contract if you don't have any further questions, Ms. Stewart," Miranda said. "I've only been here for a short while, so why would it be me?" Willow asked, wanting more clarification. "Logically speaking, Miranda should be the next in line for the position. The president felt that you're the most qualified one among all the candidates. Regarding the appointment of our new president, he must have given it careful consideration. I still have matters to attend to. Contact me once you've signed it." Miranda could only make something up on the spot since she didn't want to expose the fact that Caspian was the president. She left Willow's office right away after saying what she needed to. If it wasn't for Caspian, this position would never become Willow's. Willow nodded and showed Miranda out. She still felt worried. She decided to call Caspian to inquire about this matter. Women could be fickle-minded sometimes. This was why they still needed to rely on men. "Hi, Willow. What's the matter?" answered Caspian. He was in his office. "Caspian, is it true that your friend is getting ready to migrate overseas? He actually wants me to be the president of South Lake Corporation," Willow asked as soon as he picked up the phone. "Isn't that a good thing? He's actually told me before that he acknowledges your potential. That must be why he wanted you to be the president," Caspian said. Willow still refused to believe this. Did she really possess such potential? For a moment, she actually doubted herself. At the same time, Willow felt that Caspian's friend must have made this arrangement because of Caspian. "Willow, stop overthinking. You can just sign the contract. This company is something trivial to them. You don't have to be so surprised," Caspian urged Willow. He was worried that Willow wouldn't accept this appointment. "What? South Lake Corporation is trivial. How wealthy is this friend of yours?" Willow was astonished. Chapter 149, Serving as the New President. Willow had already made up her mind. She wanted this position. It would be a great opportunity for her to prove herself. After hanging up the phone, she walked into Miranda's office. "Ms. Barton, I've made up my mind. I'll sign the papers," she said. "Well, let's get down to it then." "You may sign it now," Miranda said. Willow nodded. She had both copies signed right away. Miranda smiled and said to Willow, "Congratulations, Ms. Stewart. From now on, you're the new president of South Lake Corporation." "Ms. Barton, I have a lot to learn from you," Willow said, smiling. She didn't expect any of this. It all happened too fast. She was now the president of Southlake Corporation. "Don't worry. I'll assist you along the way," Miranda said with a big smile. Miranda had known all along that Willow was to become the new president. She wasn't surprised at all. The signing of the contract was just part of the procedure. She was fine with being vice president. "Should we be holding a meeting to announce my appointment as the new president?" Willow asked. With her sudden promotion, she was at a loss of what to do. "That's right. I'll arrange it right away," Miranda replied courteously. She left the office and began preparations for the meeting. Caspian left Southlake Corporation quietly. He no longer planned to deal with any of the matters regarding the company. Sylvia and Macy confiscated all of Flying Dragon's and the York family's assets. The people of Southlake City were still unaware of the obliteration of Flying Dragons. They just felt like their city had been quieter than before. The disappearance of the mighty York family gained widespread attention. The majority of the people couldn't comprehend how they could just disappear overnight. Meanwhile, in the meeting held by Miranda, it was officially announced that Willow had become the new president of Southlake Corporation. All of the higher-ups were taken aback. They don't understand how Willow could become the new president. She had only been at Southlake Corporation for a month. In terms of seniority, Willow wasn't the next in line for this position. In the short period of only 2 months, the company's president had changed twice. But since it was already officially written in black and white, it had to be true. And so, the news of Willow's appointment spread like wildfire across Southlake City. Willow's promotion from project director to president at Southlake Corporation was totally unexpected. She had only entered the company not too long ago. The public started speculating that Willow must have had an affair with the previous president. How else would she have gotten this position? The news had made its way to Stewart residence. "Grandma, I've got breaking news. Willow is now the president of Southlake Corporation," Henry announced. "What?" Marilyn couldn't believe her ears. "Grandma, the news of Willow becoming the president of Southlake Corporation has been circulating in the business world," Henry said passionately. "That's amazing. Nobody would dare to look down on our family anymore," Marilyn said excitedly. When the rest of the Stewart family received the news, they were also shocked. Willow was still young. They never expected that she would become the president of Southlake Corporation in such a short span of time. They began to feel regretful for mistreating Willow and kicking her and Caspian out of the mansion. "Now that my Willow has become president, partnering with Southlake Corporation would be an easy task," Kate said happily. "That's right. Call up Willow right away. Tell her to come home for dinner." Marilyn wanted to take this opportunity to win Willow over. "Okay, I'll call her now," Kate said happily. Now that Willow had become the president of Southlake Corporation, Kate was beyond exhilarated. Her status in the house would keep rising. Kate gasped Willow a phone call. Willow was in her new office when her phone rang. She picked it up. "Hi, Mom. What's the matter?" Willow asked. "Willow, you're amazing. You've actually become the president of Southlake Corporation," Kate said excitedly. Willow was stunned for a moment. She didn't expect the news to spread this fast. It seemed like the entire Stewart family had already received this news. "Come home for dinner tonight. Bring Caspian along with you. Your grandma is really happy and wanted to have a family dinner," Kate said. If she managed to invite Willow home tonight, she might be able to impress the other family members. And from here onwards, their status in the Stewart family would skyrocket. "I won't be coming home tonight, Mom. I'm really busy," Willow said. There was actually another reason why she didn't feel like going home. "You're not. But the entire family is looking forward to having you come back." Kate didn't expect that Willow wasn't planning on coming home. "Caspian found out that you kicked his foster mother out of our house. He saw it on our house's surveillance camera. I had to beg him to spare you. I feel like it would be best for him not to step into Stewart residence for the time being. I'm afraid that you guys would start a fight." Willow finally revealed the real reason. He knew about that. "Then, I guess it would be better that you both not return home for now. I won't bother you anymore since you're busy." Kate was frightened and hung up as soon as she could. She turned pale and broke out in a cold sweat. Seeing Kate's reaction, Marilyn felt that something was off. "Mom, Willow's really busy as she's just gotten appointed. She won't be coming home tonight. Kate could only come up with something on the spot. She didn't want anybody to know that she was the one who kicked Lilith out of the house. Now that she's become president, she's already looking down on us. Marilyn said, displeased. No, it's not that. She's really busy. Besides, it's not like this will be our only chance to have a meal with her, Kate answered swiftly. Willow was elated over her promotion. She invited Caspian and Zoe to a celebratory dinner at a hotel. After their celebration, Caspian and Willow returned to the villa. Willow was euphoric that night. She kept tossing and turning in bed. She couldn't fall asleep. She looked at Caspian, who was lying beside her. She hadn't gotten used to this yet. After Zoe had left, the couple started sleeping in the same room. Why are you sleeping so far away from me? Did you not like me anymore? Willow asked. She wanted Caspian to hold her in his arms, or better, to do what they did yesterday. Chapter 150, A Visit from the Imperial Capital. Caspian was stunned for a moment. He gathered himself and said, It's not that. I'm just not used to this. It seemed like after that night, Willow's attitude had changed. She had become much bolder now. Then why aren't you holding me? Willow sulked. She then rested her cheek against Caspian's chest. In the Two Lakes region, there was an extremely luxurious private club called the Regal Club. The owner of this club was untouchable. Behind the clubhouse was a small courtyard with picturesque scenery. There was an elderly man who was fishing by the lake. He exuded an extraordinary air. Standing next to him was another man. He was carrying a big sword on his back. He had a stern expression. This man's nickname was the Reaper. He was secretly a master of his craft. Leonardo, we have the latest news. The entire gang of flying dragons in South Lake City went missing. Even their supreme leader, Garrett, is missing as well. He's probably dead. At these words, the old man's fishing rod snapped into two pieces. This old man was Leonardo Xanthos. He was the second oldest child in his family. Those around him referred to him as Sir Leon. What happened? Leonardo asked in a serious tone. The Reaper shook his head and said, I'm not sure. I had sent out many men to investigate, but there wasn't any news. The only thing I know is that Inspector Ezekiel went missing as well. Keep on searching. There must be something going on, Leonardo said coldly. Yes, sir? The Reaper nodded his head. At first, Leonardo planned to back up Garrett. Flying dragons was constantly expanding. Who knew they would be eradicated? With flying dragons destroyed, Leonardo's plan was completely ruined. I have another piece of news. The York family had also vanished into thin air overnight. Nobody knows where Cheel Zachary is as well. The Reaper said. What? This news made Leonardo rise from his seat. The York family was one of the most powerful families in South Lake City. How could they have vanished overnight? How could the regional chief not survive as well? Leonardo was greatly shocked by this news. Who was the one who did all this? Have you heard about anything? Leonardo asked. No. The Reaper shook his head. Leonardo's expression turned sullen. He said, Flying dragons and the York family were destroyed. Chief Zachary was also killed. It seems like a bloody storm is coming for South Lake City. Sir Leon, should we be taking any actions? The Reaper asked. Let's observe the situation first. It would be great if we could seize the estates of Flying Dragons and the York family. Sir Leon. The butler was running toward them in a state of panic. What is it? Why are you so worked up? Leonardo asked, his voice calm and low. Someone's looking for you. The butler was gasping for air. Send him back. I'm not meeting anyone today. Leonardo, are you turning me away as well? A young lady walked in. Following behind her was an old man with tenacity in his eyes. Leonardo was taken by surprise. He hurried forward to greet her politely, saying, I have sinned. My sincerest apologies for not coming out to greet you, Your Highness. The young lady smiled and said, Don't worry, this is a surprise visit anyway. I don't blame you. Leonardo was relieved to hear this. This young lady wasn't just anyone. She was Celestia York. She came from the imperial family. Leonardo owed it to the House of York for all the prosperity he had to his name in the Two Lakes region. Leonars was puzzled by Celestia's sudden visit. Your Highness, please, have a seat. Leonardo is fidgeting. You don't have to be so nervous. I'm here today because I have a matter that I need you to handle, Celestia said indifferently. At your service, Your Highness, Leonardo answered immediately. I'm sure you've already heard about the obliteration of the York family of South Lake City. We may not have the closest relationship, but they are still one of us. Whoever that harmed the York family of South Lake City is trying to humiliate us. I'm sure you get what I mean, Celestia said in a chillingly calm manner. Leonardo scrambled for a response. I'll have my man on the case immediately. Good. Just notify me once there are any updates. I'll be in South Lake City for the time being. After she had given her orders, she left the club. The elderly man followed suit. Farewell, Your Highness. Leonardo let out a sigh of relief after Celestia had left. Sir Leon, did Miss York really come all the way here because of what happened to the York family? The Reaper asked. I'm not sure. That doesn't concern us. One thing for sure, a storm is about to hit South Lake City. Leonardo let out a heavy sigh. Things were tensing up in South Lake City, with the arrival of the House of York from the imperial capital. It was feared that South Lake City would soon be engulfed in chaos. On the other hand, Caspian had brought Sylvia with him to confiscate the estates of Flying Dragons and the York family. The Flying Dragons had been in South Lake City for many years. Hence, they owned many territories and clubs. Meanwhile, at the York clan group at South Lake City, Jeffrey was sitting anxiously in his office. He had recently heard of some rumors. He also knew about the obliteration of the York family. On that day, he had received an invitation from Nadia to go to the Cliff of Death. However, he was busy with official business the other day and couldn't make it. Ever since that night, he no longer saw any members of the York family again. It was as if they had disappeared entirely. This made him worried. He had an inkling that the York family might have encountered an unfortunate event. It was at this moment that his door was kicked open. An old man and a young lady walked in. I'm here to take over the York family's companies and all of its subsidiaries. Celestia's aristocratic air filled the office. At the same time, the elderly man next to her took an emerald pendant out. The pendant had a gold engraving of the name York. This was the symbol of the imperial family, the House of York. Jeffrey was utterly shaken upon seeing the pendant. How would he not know the House of York? The York family of South Lake City might be known as an influential family, but if one were to compare them to the House of York, they were technically just one of their many branches. Hundreds of years ago, the younger brother of the York family's leader had to leave the imperial capital for some reason. He then expanded his business and set up branches in South Lake City. From there, the largest faction of the York family was established in South Lake City. However, the House of York had never been in contact with those in South Lake City. So why would they suddenly appear and take over the estates of the York family? About that, Jeffrey stammered. What's wrong? Do you want to go against the House of York? The elderly man's face turned dark and menacing. His eyes were filled with fury. One could feel a strong sense of malice emanating from him, making it hard for people to look directly at him.